Onyxcoin XCN Goliath Mainnet, 27th March 2026. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, keeping technical message short and sweet as always. Like, subscribe, donate, become members if you want. 50% of everything I make goes to save animals' lives. Now we're looking at XCN and one of the articles that is more recent to coming out. And what interests me about this, or what should interest you as well, is that they are looking, after reading the whole paragraph, at repricing phase based on actual adoption, developer transaction, ecosystem growth after launch. So March 27th being here in 2 days. After launch, it's going to potentially do repricing. And I want to bring up the chart because those of you who have been following along, we've gone over this for months now. It's definitely in the downward wedge. It's been showing us that as support and resistance, a rising floor, a closing ceiling, a bunch of liquidity and pressure getting pumped into this coin, and Goliath mainnet in 2 days, and depending on how well it does, repricing. If you do not know what repricing is, you should probably look in a dictionary or something because that's standard English. If you don't know English, repricing, it's it's redoing the price. So just like price discovery, what we would expect, similar to like what we've talked about with XRP, I'll do a video on that as well. But XRP, when it gets over $3.60, it's price discovery, meaning it can be whatever price after that. Essentially, we are at half a penny. If you guys have not stacked enough XCN, it's definitely a good time to do so, as the risk to reward ratio is a very little risk to a lot of reward. Those of you who have been following along in this channel, if I have been incorrect and for some reason this thing just kills itself, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's happening. I'm here to help you guys make money. I am not a financial advisor, but we have these lines placed out here because in this red line here on February 10th of 2026, looking at the news, according to this, governance votes on certain things within the Onyx team or XCN uh, corporation, that did nothing to the market. So there was the changing and voting upon things. It didn't do really anything. The Goliath mainnet is definitely a lot bigger, especially with that one paragraph stating that it can get repricing. So maybe we're here at 0.005 and then it gets that pump after Goliath net. I think it's going to take a little bit, as it did state within the writing. It would be potentially shortly after. On the 27th, I think we are going to get some consolidation still on this black upward trend line. We all are really waiting to see what Bitcoin's going to be doing. And I'll be stating this in the next video as well, but there's an article on Bitcoin, and the more bids and less asks down at the bottom of this chart is completely different than what it was like back before February, which is pretty nice to see. But just like any other news, especially in Bitcoin, they always close off with, we're unsure what's going to happen. So just take everything they say with a grain of salt. But that's a pretty cool chart to look at. Let's look at the actual Bitcoin chart. It is still consolidating upwards. What we have posted in a different chart here, I believe it is on Coinbase or something instead of crypto's chart, is the upward wedge. So those typically tend to push downwards depending on the war that's going on. If they come to a settlement, maybe we might break to the upside. But if not, or something else happens, we could see this push as low to around the 45 to 50,000. It's less and less likely, though. We are looking very healthy. So as the days go on and we get consolidation, we will get more clarification. But in 2 days, being Goliath Mainnet, pretty big news, but also keep it with a grain of salt, because like a lot of news, it'll tell you one thing and then do the opposite, only to follow back and do 10 times what you thought it would after it does a liquidity sweep. but it's still working very nicely within the black wedge that we have placed here. And it is forming more or less, I've put it on the chart before, a nice W. And if we can get over that 200 EMA right in this pocket, that's essentially what needs to be broken for us to break out to the upside. So if you haven't entered into XCN and you're trying to play it smart, smart money is entering in right here. However, Goliath Mainnet, we could be pushing out of this wedge, pushing all the way up here to 0.014, and then retracing and testing this as support. That's why this is the smart money box, because they wait for it to test as support, and we need the Clarity Act to pass before this blue line. That's going to be major, major news. If Goliath Net pushes this out and we hold support on top of this black downward trend line, and then the Clarity Act gets released, you can expect not only repricing and a high volatility for XCN, but we could be pushing easily up to the 0.031 or even this previous high at 0.046. Beyond that, that is price discovery as well. It could be playing out where they do repricing and it just skyrockets. There's no way to really tell, but if you don't have XCN, now is not a bad time to enter. I am not a financial advisor, but I do see the entry opportunity. I do see we are building higher lows off this black trend line. The 200 EMA is very close. The wedge is forming, filling out very nicely. If we were to draw a center line right through this, more or less, that's where the resistance is and the support. And if we can get over that, we can expect further upside, at least to this black downward trend line. Right now, it's still a waiting game. Hopefully, you guys are prepared for if tomorrow does some major stuff. I think it's going to take a week or two, and we're going to see the Clarity Act and that potentially go through at the same time. However, the longer this goes on, the Clarity Act looks less and less promising, and obviously, everybody's starting to get pretty worried. But it's a waiting game. We can't control the government, even though we can do votes and stuff like that. We are waiting to see if they're either going to pass this Clarity Act and have major, major crypto super cycle coming in. And for all those of you who have been stacking down here, whether it be a penny and a half higher or lower, expect to see that almost 5 cent price target, 10 cents, and 18, potentially 42 is the opportunity. But you guys will be piecing out on the way up, hopefully, so you can secure your bag and not get trapped. Stick around, like, subscribe, donate, become members if you want. Nobody's forcing you to. About 50% of your donations and memberships, merch buys, all go to save animals' lives. Good luck. Have fun with it. I will see you guys on the next one.